What's up, guys, and welcome back to more Reddit stories about entitled people, crazy people, and all that kind of stuff. So be sure to subscribe for more Reddit content if you haven't already, and let's get into today's stories. A couple on a recreational trail told me to turn around because their dog is dangerous. I was running my normal run on a local recreational/bike trail that is in a tourist town, and super popular for walking, cycling, dog walking, etc. Plus, it's along a river and popular for swimming holes and bridge jumping. There are multiple smallish bridges that are about 30 feet long and can only safely fit 2 people wide. It's common for tourists not familiar with trail etiquette to rent bikes, or walk after dinner and drinks, plus all the local kids. A group of 13-year-old boys frequent the bridges for jumping, plus a daycare uses the grassy areas. It can be frustrating to use the trail as many are often oblivious, but it's expected in the area. I stopped my run to stretch my foot on one of the bridges, but saw a couple heads bobbing on top of it, and decided to not stop there as it seemed like not a good spot and others were around. It's a blind corner onto the bridge. I walked onto the bridge and saw a man and woman with a dog about halfway over. The woman was waving at me, but I ignored it at first, as I thought she was going to ask for directions or something and I wanted to get back to my run. Then she got in front of me with her hands in a stop position and asked me to turn around off the bridge. I stopped because I thought maybe there was an emergency ahead, but then they said, "This is a trained protection dog, and we are giving you courtesy by asking you to turn around so it won't bite you. The bridge is narrow and he may see you as a threat." I just stood and stared at them for a bit, saying nothing. They kept saying the dog is dangerous, and for my safety I need to turn around and let them pass, because it may bite. It was on about 10 feet of leash shortened to 1 foot beside the man, and the man had his arms stretched out to the railing to block any passage. I asked them if they could turn around and just let me pass. They said, "No, we were already here. We tried to stop you before you got on. I don't know why it's so hard to make way." And I mostly stood in silence trying to process. They kept saying I needed to turn around and this is common knowledge here. What? Then I said aggressively, "I'll get off since it's at least on a leash, but you're rude." And we got into a yelling match. How do you walk around with a dangerous dog on a popular bike path, telling people to yield to you or get bit? Yeah, calling your dog a trained protection dog is a pretty weird way of saying that it's actually untrained and aggressive. If a dog was actually a quote trained protection dog, then it would know not to attack random people. And if it's in the process of being trained perhaps and its behavior is still unpredictable, then don't take it out to a busy public place like this. Don't let random strangers in a crowded area be your guinea pigs to try to teach your dog to not maul people. And it's honestly pretty unsettling that there's actually people out there like this, putting others in danger. Lady at the holiday resort, seeing you get the karma you deserved still satisfies me to this day. My family and I went to Crete on holiday. A lovely all-inclusive hotel, close by the beach, decent food, drinks, pool, sunbeds, all of the fun things. The hotel had mainly people from Denmark. Thinking back, I don't actually remember there being anyone else but Danish people. I am from Denmark myself. There was a woman and her husband who also spent the week at the hotel when we were there. The husband was very quiet and seemed to just be dragged around by her. We got quite used to her complaining at dinner. Her fussy way of marching up to the young holiday guides at the hotel and nagging at them. But we did not mind her much at first. Me and my family love experiencing local culture. And while exploring the city we were in, on top of a tall hill at the back of the city, we found a wonderful local restaurant. It wasn't even really a restaurant. It was a Greek mama who cooked in her kitchen and let people eat on her terrace with a beautiful view of the sea. It was very humble, and the food honest and amazing, just delicious in every way. The mama was so caring and kind and kept coming to interact with us. It was amazing. So we ate there a couple of times this week. One night coming back to the hotel, the Karen came marching up to us. "How dare you?" Karen said. "What?" we asked. "You have paid for your all-inclusive meals and then you don't even eat dinner here?" "We paid for it, so we can do what we want with it. And if we want to eat somewhere else, we can do that. Don't you think that is a massive waste?" "We're sure they are used to it." "Well, I think it is disrespectful and you ought to know better." We just laugh and walk away from her. Well, the next day, her and her husband had booked this hike through a gorge. Samaria Gorge? Something like that. You hike through this nature area. Then you end up in a rural city, only available either by walking there or taking a boat. When arriving at the city, you then take a boat and then a bus to get back to the hotel. Well, the lady and her husband weren't exactly fit. The reason we know what happened is because her and her husband were missing at breakfast. When they arrived later, her thundercloud was so heavy the whole hotel felt it. We then saw a very shaken hotel guide, a girl probably 18 to 20 years old. Coming up to comfort her, she told the story. Well, Karen and her husband had taken this hike. Halfway through, their bodies had given up, and they were too far in to return. So they had to wait for a couple of donkeys from the rural city to come pick them up and carry them to their end destination. Once arriving at the city, the last boat had sailed, and so they had to rent a hotel for the night that was absolutely overpriced, and then the next morning take the boat and bus back. After this, Karen still was like a thundercloud the rest of the holiday. We didn't hear any more from her. She and her husband stuck to each other in the corners and were more quiet. I feel sorry for them ruining their own holiday, and I'm glad they didn't ruin anything for us, but have since just given us a lot to laugh about. Must be hard to be that entitled. And poor husband, my heart goes out to him. And yes, I also have a lot of sympathy for the staff, tour guides, and the poor donkeys. Honestly, anyone who ever has to interact with this woman. Calling children's social care on my neighbor when she left her children on my doorstep. Me, 29 female, and my husband, 27, live in a cul-de-sac. Everyone is too close to one another, and it means people are naturally in each other's business. Right from the beginning, I had issues with one of our neighbors. She is the type of woman that lets her children wander about without a care. But that is not the worst part. She has an uncanny skill for talking the neighbors into babysitting for her. I am normally the type to say no, but even I have been roped into it way too many times. Yesterday, she came knocking on my door again, so I pretended I wasn't home. She continued to knock harder, and I thought she would yank the letterbox right off, so I went to answer. She quickly said a few sentences that I didn't quite understand and that she would be back on Sunday. She has 6 children ranging from 6 months to 7 years old. I told her I couldn't, and she said the black cab was waiting for her. I tried to grab her hand to stop her from leaving. I said I was unable to, and she ran off and got in the cab. I was pissed, and that is putting it mildly. I waited 40 minutes, and then I sent her a text saying that if she couldn't pick them up in 10, I would call Children's Services. She didn't answer the text, so I called her, and she didn't pick up on the first 2 rings but picked up on the 3rd. I told her the same thing again, and she tried to tell me it was too late for her to come back as she was out of the city, and that if I didn't want to watch them, to drop them off at Jennifer's, the 68-year-old lady with health issues living on the opposite side of me. I repeated that if she wasn't here in 10, she could pick them up at the local council if they decided she was a fit enough mother. She said a few bad words and told me I would never. So I did, as in the moment it felt like she was baiting me. After phoning Child Services, I sent her a text that it was done. She phoned me back and said she was halfway to Blackpool and that she would murder me if it was true. So I sent her a video when Child Services picked them up. The police were there too, as they said they often tag along for collecting abandoned children in case something criminal has happened, and they asked a lot of questions about the mother. Last night, me and my husband had a huge fight. He said I should have declined at the door, instead of waiting 40 minutes before calling CSC when the mother couldn't reasonably pick them up in 10 minutes. He said I had other options like not opening the door, or running after her and throwing the children into the black cab instead of giving silent consent. He also said I did it on purpose as the mother offered Jennifer as an alternative, so why hadn't I done that? In my defense, I am not comfortable handing over children to a third party, and good manners say you don't show up on an elderly woman's doorstep and give her 6 unruly children to deal with for a few days. I would never have lived down that shame. My husband argued that once I had dropped them off at Jennifer's, it would no longer be my business, but something between the mother and our other neighbor. He told me anything that happens to those children in care is on my head, and then he told me of things he himself experienced in care as a kid, and what he knew of others in care had experienced. I haven't slept all that much, and my husband left for work without speaking to me. I wonder if I should go back to Child Services and say I overreacted, or that it was a misunderstanding, and find a way to make it up to the children and get them out of there. I had no idea foster care was that bad. You know, I don't think it's very fair for OP's husband to be holding her accountable for this. He seems to have had bad experiences from being in the child services system as a kid, which would explain his reaction to this. But I just don't think it's fair to put this much blame on OP when she was just kinda forced into this situation out of nowhere. She did tell the mother no multiple times according to OP, so she didn't exactly give silent consent as OP's husband put it. OP did warn the mother that she would call child services if she didn't come back. And even though the mother did say that OP could instead take the 6 kids over to the elderly neighbor, she also didn't seem to give any indication that the neighbor was notified about this or agreed to it at all. So she was essentially putting OP in the position of having to manipulate other people into watching her kids like she does. Overall, it just sounds like OP was stuck between a rock and a hard place, and there really was just no way to win here. Carded by alcohol control at a baseball game, then accused of having a fake ID. This happened about a year ago, and I honestly still can't figure out what the guy was thinking. I and some friends went to a baseball game, all of us in our mid-20s, and I probably look older than everyone else as I have a big beard. We get our drinks and head over to the standing room section to watch the game. All of us are joking around having a good time when someone from, quote, alcohol control, that's what the vest said, comes over and asks to see my ID. No big deal, hand over my ID. And as he's looking at it, me and my friends are all looking at each other thinking, seriously, me? I'm the oldest looking dude here. I notice that he's been looking at my ID for a minute and starts speaking into his radio for law enforcement before looking back at me and saying, "This ID is fraudulent. The police are on their way. You know it's a felony in Georgia to carry a fake ID." I'm over here dumbfounded. The ID is legit, and I'm a rather tall-looking dude with a massive beard. Why would he pick me out of the crowd as looking underage, and then think my very real ID is fake? Whatever, I think to myself. The cop should be around the corner, and this is going to have a hysterical ending. The cop comes over, and the alcohol control guy explains the situation with my ID, before handing it to him. The cop looks at the ID and takes a quick glance at me, turns to the alcohol control guy and says, "No, this ID is very real. And you thought this guy was underage?" Before handing the ID back to me with the "sorry to have wasted your time" look on his face, and wishing me and my friends a safe night. Alcohol control guy gets red in the face, apologizes, and quickly leaves. I so wanted to crack a joke about how the ID was such a good fake it took me 24 years to get, but I decided to stay quiet and keep sipping my beer. Alright guys, that's going to be all for today's stories. Thank you for watching, I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed, be sure to drop a like and subscribe for more Reddit shenanigans. So I'll see you next time, and take care.